Welcome back. Today I wanted to go through some opportunities that I missed in a rapid game last night. I did win, but I missed several opportunities to make it even better or to win faster. But first, I want to look at these graphs here. These are screenshots. The top one from my browser when I evaluated this game, and the bottom one is from the app, the Android app for chess.com, when I evaluated there. Now, they look very similar, except for a couple of things. Over on the left, I noticed that the gray or white area where white has the advantage is a different shape. On the PC, it shows white's advantage increasing up to a certain point and then dropping. Whereas on the app, it showed white getting their highest advantage pretty early and then dropping off just a little bit. Also, where I had, that's one of my missed opportunities there, that first drop there into the black pieces. I was playing with black. And but then right here on the app, it shows a second one a few moves later that's not shown in the PC. It goes down to about 0, whereas on the app it actually went below 0. And so anyway, I did notice some slight differences between the evaluation engines. I thought that was curious. Also, the app said I had inaccuracies and missed wins, but no mistakes or blunders. Whereas on the PC, it said I had a mistake and a blunder, but no missed wins. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. Let's get to the game. Okay, my opponent started with d4, and I played knight to f6, which I've been trying to learn better responses to the d4 openings. It's still one of my weak points. And I haven't played this opening enough times to be incredibly familiar. For example, here, according to the engine, by far my best move is bishop to b4. And I also know that I remember from the past that d5 isn't bad here. But instead I played c5, which turns out to be the Benoni defense, I think. And it also blocks my bishop from there. I can't get to it. So I made not really a mistake, but I went into an inferior opening from fairly early on, which is how white gained and maintained about a 1-point advantage for a little while. And I did miss a few minor opportunities here in the opening, but nothing major. Here my opponent made a mistake, losing most of their advantage when they took and I took back. You saw that they were nearly at a 2-point advantage. And here now they're back to close to even. Regardless, we maneuvered. I was preparing to castle, then decided not to for a little bit. I was aiming for this pawn. That wasn't one of the recommended moves. I just saw that I can prevent white from castling and possibly infiltrate here in the future. It was on move 14 where this is, yeah, right here. The evaluation shows us close to even, and my opponent played that. And here, if you'll notice the evaluation, suddenly I, as black, have nearly a 4-point advantage if I do one thing. And that one thing is to take this pawn. Now, I saw this after I moved, after I made a different move. I saw that, oh wow, they blocked the rook from the protection of this pawn, so I would have had a free pawn with check. I did, honestly, during the game, I didn't consider it. But even after I missed it and realized that on the next move I had that free pawn, I didn't feel too bad about it because I thought, well, I mean, they could just move out of check. I mean, they can't move the other way because of my bishop, right? They could move out of check. I also saw they could block the check with the knight. They could block the check with this knight. They could block the check with the queen. And so I didn't think of it that much. Later I realized that had they blocked the check with this knight, which might have been their first instinct, I would have won the rook with check. I don't know if I would have gotten trapped down there or not. But anyway, I missed that. Apparently what happens here, if I take this pawn with check, I have a series of relatively forcing moves over the next 4 or 5 moves that end up with me on top. I wouldn't have figured that out in a rapid game. Maybe in a, I think at most I would have taken the pawn when they blocked check, I would have come back, just winning a pawn. But anyway, that was apparently, according to the engine, one opportunity that I missed. And now let's move on to the next one, which comes on move 22. So I'll just skip forward to there. As you can see, white has returned to having about an even game at this point. That wasn't one of the missed opportunities. That was just a blunder on my opponent's part. I don't know why they didn't move to the safe squares that they could have, but I just won a knight at this point and went up. But I maintained a little bit of an advantage, and we played relatively normally until they took my rook. Now right here, I had a huge, awesome opportunity that I just completely missed. Now I had noticed when I put my knight there, taking that pawn, that I was protecting this check. My idea was to save that until it was a riper opportunity. Here, during the course of the game, because my opponent had just taken my rook and they're up on material slightly, I thought it was pretty obvious that I should take with one of these pieces, and I chose to take with my rook to help protect this pawn and this file over here. But my opportunity right now was to force a triple fork. And the reason is because this bishop guards f1, and the knight guards right here. If I check with the bishop, protected by the knight, they only have one legal move, and that's here. And then I have the triple fork. I would have won the queen right there. And I could have picked up the knight later or let it go. I mean, it's trapped right now. So that was a huge missed opportunity because, again, that would have been the king's only legal move. And when I checked here, it doesn't matter which one of the three places the king goes, I would win the queen. I missed that completely. As I said, I took back with the rook instead. The next one came on move 28, so I'm just going to kind of go forward to there. Again, bishop taking here was my best move, but what I saw was that when the rook moved, I would win the bishop with check, which is what happened. So I'm up even further on material at this point, and I got the rook. But so now I'm winning, and I lined up, which was a pretty good move. But right here, wait for the engine. See, it says 77. If you wait a second, 79, 80, it's going to find it in a second. No? Oh, there it goes. It says I have a forced mate if I take here right now. Now, that involves, if you can follow the line of the engine out here, once I take that pawn, that's not a forcing move. They're going to have the opportunity to take this pawn with check, and I'm going to have to make the exact right moves. But then I do, as you can see, made an 11. However, I mean, the whole reason I moved my rook here in the first place was so that I could take this pawn and kind of barrel through. But right here, I saw that their queen had just lined up with this unprotected pawn. It'll be unprotected once I move my queen forward. So I decided to not do that and take another pawn, and now I'm backwards protecting that pawn, so now I can do this. But apparently I missed a huge opportunity there. I didn't see it here, again, because I saw that if I do take this pawn, yes, I'm in charge of the game, I'm way ahead, but I did see this, and I didn't really follow through the how I could get out of that check, what I could do about it. And so I missed another opportunity right here. And as I've said in the past, I'm probably, it's going to be a long time before I start seeing mate in 12. But I did what I did, take the pawn to protect my pawn backwards, preparing this. And here it says I still should have just taken this pawn, let this bishop go. But I decided to protect the bishop. And the cool thing about this that I didn't quite realize at the time is that I'm I'm starting to cut this king off. And right here, it's still saying I should take that pawn. But what I saw was what's the engine showing is the second best move. I can draw that king down in here with this, looks like a free pawn. And that's what I did. So the king came down. This is the fourth huge opportunity that I missed. Right now, if I check with my queen, the king only has one legal move, and that's to go back where it was, and then that's mate. Because as I just pointed out, the bishop and the pawn guard these spots, and my queen would be guarding this entire diagonal. So yeah, right here I could have forced a mate. Boom. It would have been over right there. But I didn't see that. And so after the king took the pawn, I checked with the rook, which I still have forced mate in just a few moves. It's just that now, because my queen's not over here, I can't force mate here. So just a few moves later, if you're noticing my opponent's clock, they weren't managing their time wisely. My opponent has 14 seconds left. I have 5 minutes. So I had time to consider each of these moves. And I did finally take that pawn with the idea to come, to one of these places. And here, with only 4 seconds left, my opponent took that, and I took their queen, and they ran out of time. So anyway, as I said, I won the game. I was in charge all the way back from when my opponent moved their knight the wrong way. I think it was here earlier, and then I was ahead ever since. But as you can see, during the game, I had chances. So this is one reason I evaluate even my wins. I think probably more people evaluate their losses, trying to figure out why they lost or what they could have done differently. But one reason I evaluate my wins also is for this, to see what I missed, how I could have won more quickly, how I could have gained advantage in different ways. And but I think the one that burns me up the most was that where I missed the triple fork in this position. Again, that was the whole reason that I had set these pieces here in the first place, was aiming at that pawn. But right here, I just didn't even think I could let that knight go. Where's it? I mean, it's not going to get out, right? And yeah, that would have forced this move, and I would have won the queen with my knight right here. But anyway, thank you for watching. I hope that you are also learning things from both your wins and losses and continuing to improve. Thank you.